and welcome to Hedgehog Holly, and welcome to my second instalment of inspiration with the Crafters Workshop. Today I'm going to be using a light and fluffy texture paste to create a great background with one of the new Floral stencils. I'm then going to be going over the top of it with Reinkers to create this lovely faded effect through a couple of different shades. We're going to be stamping a lovely sentiment. I'm also going to show you how to make this perfectly coordinating butterfly that has lots and lots of 3D dimension to it. Really does flutter across that flower page. So let's get started. So to create our background, today I'm going to be using the Dahlia Blooms. It's a new Crafters Workshop stencil. I've got some Canson watercolor paper underneath that we're going to be experimenting with as well. Now this will seep through, or the colour at the end you'll see will slightly seep through your stencil. Don't worry about that. It's taken me a few goes to get the right consistency and things, so I can share with you as we go some of the experimentation that we've had and things haven't gone right. You do need to be aware that you're not going to get a perfect result, and you want to use colours that are not going to mix together to create mud. So I'm going to be using Distress Oxide Reinkers. It's Distress Oxide Wilted Violet and Worn Lipstick. This is again one of those happy accident techniques I discovered the other day. Making a card, I spilt some reinker over the texture paste I'd actually coloured with another reinker. But it gave a kind of cool effect, so I thought, well, let's try it on a full card. So I'm using the light and fluffy modelling paste. This is a bit like a texture paste. You want to imagine you're icing a cake with your spatula. It doesn't need to be perfectly flat. A little bit of texture does look nice in there, and a little bit will go a long way. This is like a whipped spackling, if you think of that kind of texture. This is what we have here. So I'm just going all over, edge to edge on this piece of watercolour cardstock. Everything, of course, will be linked below the video and in the blog post for you as well. I'm going to put my excess back in here for now. And I'm going to grab some kitchen towel because I'll need quite a bit of it in a moment. So let's have some to hand ready. And the next thing I want to do is I want to start adding droplets of the colour, and I'm going to kind of do it diagonally half and half. So half of this is going to be in more of the pink and half it's going to be more in the purple. Now it's also worth mentioning to you that with the Distress Oxide Reinkers, they have a little metal ball inside of them, and you want to make sure you give it a nice good shake first of all, because you have a pigment and dye fusion in here and that reactivates it. When you set them down, I've got my other tray here, you can see in this ice spruce how I've got some dark and light areas. That's because it hasn't been reactivated with that ball. It doesn't matter how many times you reactivate it, you're not going to have any issues. I'm going to start activating that pink to move into this half. So I'm going to sort of do a half and half diagonally. You can spritz a little bit in this direction. And I'm just using my Distress sprayer here. And now I'm going to start adding in that purple. So whilst that looked quite a lot, it really wasn't. It's just because the water instantly grabbed at it and started moving it around. So I want those nice mixes of the pink and the purple, and I'm going to end up with darker bits in either side. Now once you've started to swirl it around and you're happy with kind of where you've got to, you want to just start picking up some of it on the edge, because we cannot let the stencil dry in that texture paste, otherwise you're never going to get it out. You won't get the result that you want at the end. So I'm just going to put this on the edge. It will start to draw out some of that water. You can see how it's just kind of slurping it up where my finger is. Exactly what we want to do. And start doing the same along the top here, and I'm going to take a clean piece of paper towel. I'm also feeling that this doesn't really have enough pink in this top piece, so I'm just going to take my spatula in there and I'm going to move a little bit of it around. It does give you a lot of flexibility to allow you to move it. Don't be scared of it, like so. But we do want to start to get some of this water out, so again I'm just going to pop some kitchen towel at the edge here and start picking up some of that water. I'm also going to give it a little helping hand with my heat it tool. Just starting to let some of that water evaporate out. But I don't want to get my texture paste or my stencil too hot. So I am giving it a very gentle touch. I'm also kind of tentatively taking in my kitchen towel. And each time I try to use a cleaner and cleaner side. I'll grab some more kitchen towel in just a second. Also going to grab another piece of this. And I'm going to use my spatula just to fill in those few areas that I feel I've gone a little bit too light. As long as you clean it in between, you can keep playing. I wouldn't suggest having, not cleaning your spatula in between, because you'll find you just end up with a muddy mess. And I can tell you that definitely from experience. So I almost want to just slide down. Now you can add multiple colours. Again, just be careful what colours you're using. You don't want to end up with too much mud, but I'm more here trying to scrape off some of that excess water than the actual colour itself. So I can now start to see that stencil. So I'm now at a point where I'm ready to really remove that stencil. And don't be afraid if it's bled a little bit underneath. You will still have all of that texture in your card, and it'll look absolutely fantastic by the time we've added everything on. Now I left this for maybe 30 to 60 seconds, nothing more. I wanted just to make sure that all of that water was off the top and it had just dried a little bit. I also removed the masking tape off of the stencil. So now I can very carefully, I'm going to peel this piece back. And we do have a little bit of bleeding, but these centre sections look great. You can see there how we've got the different tones. I'm going to leave this to dry for around about an hour. Make sure my texture paste is all solid, and then we can come back, we can mount it up, and we're going to add some stunning sentiments just to really offset this card as well. Here's my finished panel. I actually ended up leaving it overnight. I had some other things happen, but it's really nice and solidly dry. You can even die cut these panels. It will still go through a wafer thin die, but I'm just going to trim mine down to a little bit smaller than card front size. So card fronts are around about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I want mine to be 5 1/4 by 4. So I'm just going to go around, and I'm just going to make sure that this is big enough first. I don't want to cut too much off. So that's our 4. And I'm going to just trim off the top, and then I'll trim off the bottom, whatever I need to get me to that 5 1/4. So again, just going to snip that across there. And I love how it came out. Let me lift that up so you can see there. You can see all those lovely colours, the tones. I love how they go together. A little bit more interest than, say, if you just had the pink and the purple texture paste. I love how you get all those lovely lights and darks. We'll definitely try to capture that in the photographs for you as well. So now we can mount that onto our card front. Now I have a piece of Neenah Solar White, 8 1/2 by 11, cut lengthways. Lots of people ask me if I score my card fronts. I have to say I don't. I just fold it and then I firm it up with that bone folder, and I really like that EK Success bone folder. I'm going to use some of my big foam tape roll here. So let me cut a longer strip. And then I start just trimming around. And I find this is a much easier way to go than cutting shorter pieces, unless I have some to use up from a previous strip that I've cut. So I'm going to go all the way around, and that happens to fit absolutely perfectly. So we can peel this off and put it onto our card front, and then we can add that butterfly and sentiment detail. That. I think I'm going to go this way up. Well, actually no, we'll go this way up. Now I want to get that butterfly ready. So I have a butterfly that I cut out using the Waffle Flower Magical Butterfly dies. You cut out the outline and then you can stack inside to get this lovely rim, or you can just cut out extra pieces, but I love how the texture comes out when you cut it this way. I'm going to use the same Distress Oxide colours I use on the front of the card. So I have my Wilted Violet and my Worn Lipstick, and I have my favourite Barber's brushes. So I'm going to do the outside of the wings with a little bit of pink. I'm going to pick them up and I'm just going to flick these edges. And I'm going to pick this one up. So, And I'm going to pick that one there. Now the next thing we need to do, I'm going to pop that to the side just while we do our sentiment. This is the piece of cardstock that I used for the butterfly, and I'm just going to do the sentiment on it as well. I'm going to use the Waffle flower. If friends were flowers, I'd pick you, as it's a lovely, lovely flower stencil that we've used there. I think that's quite appropriate to use. And again, I'm going to use my favourite black ink, my favourite things black hybrid. And you can tell this is a very well-loved stamp. You can see how many times I've used it. And I'm going to stamp it a couple of times just to make it a really nice solid black, so it really shows up on that background. I'm going to do it once more. Like that. I'll peel that off for cleaning afterwards, and I'll clean up my stamp press too. Again, I'm going to grab my paper trimmer. And I love this paper trimmer so much. So I'm going to line up, in here there's a little guide, and I'm going to line up that top of that, if friends were flowers, I'd pick you. And that's where I'm going to start. And I can always trim down a little bit more, but it means that I get a nice straight edge. And then I start working down the sides. And this seems to have been really popular. Lots of you have ordered this since you first saw it. Take a little bit more off the top there. Make sure this is nice and straight. And this is why I love this see-through panel as well, because I can really keep an eye on exactly where it is. I love how sharp that rotary cutter is, although mine, I have to say, does need a little bit of a trim up. And again, I'm going to pop this down. Ooh. Like that. And there we are. So there's our nice sentiment. So we can put this on here too. And now we're going to start layering up our butterfly. So you can play around exactly where you want to put the butterfly, but I want him to be really in the center of that flower. And I'm going to build it up using my mixed media glue. This is from ThermoWeb. It's called Mixed Media Adhesive iCraft. And I'm going to put some of that down. So I'm going to stick one piece down first, and I'm going to stick some glue in the middle. And this dries super clear, super strong, super hard, so it works really nicely. And then I'm just going to hold these two pieces in. Hands are a little bit shaky today. I'm going to put that in there. Whoops. And I'm going to just grab out of my drawer. I'm actually going to grab a couple of little daubers, and you'll see why in just a second. And the reason I grab the daubers is because they will hold up my butterfly wings while they dry. So when you see the photos, you will see that they've dried in this really lovely position of being upright. Like that. And so I'll leave those there. I'm going to stab a little bit of foam that I'll just trim off to the side. See if that's perfect size. Doing well with my cutting this evening. So I now can stick that on there. So my butterfly will dry, and you can now see how it looks like once it's dried. Anything like these little daubers work really great to help things dry in a 3D way like this. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me for another Crafters Workshop tutorial. And I will see you again next month with some more stencil inspiration. Happy stamping. I'll see you again soon. Bye!